appreciate you taking time. I'm glad to have you back on the show finally.
Thanks for inviting me always, Sean.
Oh, anytime, man. And so I want to welcome Gorgeous George on the Fightlete podcast, and make sure to check out MMA Junkie Podcast. Obviously, one of the top podcasts in the United States, and we love hearing from the co-host Gorgeous George, the host Gorgeous George, along with his co-host Brian Goes, and make sure to check them out. And we appreciate you. And you guys are now doing your podcast on YouTube and also Apple Podcasts, right?
The podcast is done live on Sportscaster, which is very similar to YouTube. And as soon as it's done, we are able to grab the audio side of it, because on Sportscaster it's video and audio, just like we're doing now. And so we grab the audio file, and then we upload it so that everybody that's on Spotify, Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts can download it. And then, whichever one of those platforms you're a part of or you get your podcast from, just hit that subscribe and it all comes to you.
Definitely. Well, appreciate you being on. We got a big card, of course, UFC 254. So I wanted to invite you on for my last segment where we give our predictions for the fight card. We'll go over the top 4 or 5 fights and see who we got. I know that you're a big like to put bets on those fights too. So we definitely will welcome your expertise for those of us in the audience. Those are part of the audience that want to take some action on the fights.
Cool. Yeah. I had a decent night yesterday, and hopefully we can keep things going. The last 2 weeks were decent. The one before that was a bloodbath. So I think I'm back to even, maybe. We'll see. And I like to bet MMA, and I just like to bet all sports, honestly. Right. So, here we go. We'll see what happens. I when it comes to me, I wouldn't blame anybody that says, okay, who's he taking? All right, cool, go the other way.
Right, for sure. Let's talk about the main card. We know the first thing that comes to mind is that big rematch between Ankalaev and Jan Kutaleba. The original fight happened in February. Obviously, didn't go the way Kutaleba wanted it to go, and it was ruled a TKO. That was actually one of the most controversial stoppages. I think they went on replay for that one to check it, if I'm not mistaken. But finally, these two are going to meet at UFC 254 this Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, what's it been booked 4 times? And I think a few times we're here in Vegas. And it's just, it's starting to remind me of Tony versus Khabib, where the fight, it just seems jinxed. But at the same time, like you stated, Sean, that first fight left us with us wanting more, I suppose. And at some point, I mean, they're not Tony and Khabib within their own division. I wouldn't have blamed them if they just pulled them apart, had them fight others, and then if at some point in time they ran it back, cool. But the way they were shoving it down our throats, earlier I was even looking just to refresh my memory, who's on the card again? Because there's always 12 fights, and it's from one week to the other. You just can't keep track. As soon as I saw their names, I did this, kind of like, oh boy. But the UFC, man, look, they've had their infections. It's not like they're bulletproof. They've had their scares. But the protocols that they go through, quarantining you here, then before you even get on the plane, then another 48 hours in Yas Island. I got to believe this time it's going down. I think both guys are going to get after it. I think it's going to be a really, really fun fight. But I do side with Ankalaev in this one. But Jesus, I mean, if they can just get to the fight, I think we all win at that point.
I agree. I'm going to go with Kutaleba on this one. I think he's going to be ready to come back and
he's a big underdog. If you can hit that one, you're off to a good start.
Yeah. He's underdog, right? I think he's
plus 230. What is he?
Yeah, I have 220.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely a controversial rematch.
That's a good lesson to all of your listeners, your viewers. We quoted 220, 230, and it may not seem like much, but if Sean and I both place the $100 bet, one of us is getting $10 back, more. Now, there's people out there that place $1,000,
right?
And if that was the case, one of us would be taking home $100 more. So that over time can add up. Don't be lazy. You know, if you have the ability to open up a few accounts wherever you can, where it's legal, do it, and shop your lines around for sure.
Definitely. And I think, why do you have Ankalaev with this fight? Like, what jumps out at you that he's going to get the finish or actually, win by decision?
Well, I just think he's a little bit more, I'll put it to you this way. I think Cutelaba just seems to be more reckless and more prone to make a mistake. But I also believe that Ankalaev just has a little bit more of the mental side, like, on point. And especially dealing with everything that's happening here with all these, infections. That's been more on the Cutelaba side. And so I guess there's even a 5% of me that still watches all of these guys, starting with Lyman Good and Walt Harris, who also has a fight coming up. I'm going to watch them for about a good year or so and just see how their bodies respond to having gone through the infection and not having long-term effects. Now they're world-class athletes, so for the most part, I would imagine everybody does come back, 100%. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to get through the camp. But make no mistake, a lot of times fighters don't get through the camps, even if they haven't been infected before. They basically stagger and stumble to the finish line because, man, this is the sad thing to say, some of them just need that money. Some of them just need that payday, and so they show up with torn ligaments in their knees, with maybe, these concussions. And so we'll see, there's nothing wrong with sitting it out with a few fighters and just watching them for a while, because there's so many bets that can be made week to week. Throw in Bellator now; they're back in action. There should never be a shortage of fights if you don't feel 100% about any of the athletes.
That's true, and then we saw that also, with the recent fights. Holly Holm and Aldana. Maybe Aldana was, kind of suffering from that too.
That's a good point. I think Aldana's was more from just bad game planning. I mean, sometimes I'm pretty bad about seeing the subsequent interviews post-fight, and so it could be that Aldana addressed that, but to me, just upon watching the fight that night, and that fight got my blood boiling, man. I had Aldana, and you're just, circling and circling and staying away from the power hand and circling, and every time she would get close, she either wouldn't throw herself or Holly would sidekick or blitz on her. It was, oh man, it drove me nuts to just watch that fight. I'm not gonna lie. Again, I had Aldana in some parlays. I would have made some money, but when you see that type of game planning or lack of for 25 minutes, man, you get pissed off. So I'm glad you brought that out, because I still haven't gotten it out of my system.
Sure. Yeah, definitely. I thought Aldana was going to be the next challenge for that title as well. So.
Yeah, man. Mexico needs that. Mexico's going to pop when they get their star. No disrespect to Henry Cejudo, Cain Velasquez. They're Mexican Americans. But I'm talking about a homegrown Mexican fighter who hopefully even trains in Mexico, although I don't think the Mexican fans would hold that against them. But, Jair Rodriguez, Brandon Moreno, Irene Aldana, Alexa Grasso, one of those, man, hopefully they can have that type of a big moment, because combat sports is huge in Mexico, and they love their sports athletes. So I can't wait for one of those to succeed.
You think UFC is going to go back to Mexico just because, the fact what happened the last time with the Yair Stevens fight? It might leave a, sour taste in their mouth.
Yeah, they'll go back. It's hard to say, because with the pandemic backing them, I got to imagine there's a plethora of cities that await them.
Yeah.
They'll just try to be knocking them off one by one. A lot of those cities are here in the United States. And then, of course, their expansion into Europe. I know they want to go to Africa. They have a commitment towards Abu Dhabi. Aside from the Fight Island, they already had a commitment of going there. That's become huge for combat sports, through pro wrestling, boxing, Oceania. I just don't think they can get to all of them. I mean, they usually have 42 events per year. But anyway, to answer your question, I'm drifting off here. They will get back to Mexico, and I just don't know if it'll be in the form of a fight night or a pay-per-view. I think it all depends on how their Mexican stars are performing.
Definitely. Next fight we have is, of course.
And I
Go ahead.
will say this: Mexico is one of the countries that's handled the pandemic on the bad side in terms of when you just look at the statistics. So that may hurt them too. Who knows?
That's true. Calvillo is going to be fighting Murphy in the flyweight division. So, did you like Cynthia what she did against Jessica Eye? What was you got any criticisms on that fight? And how do you think she does against Murphy?
Jessica Eye, I thought made it too easy for Calvillo. I didn't think this guy fought her best, but I don't want to take anything away from Calvillo moving up to fight, for the first time at flyweight and having in the UFC and having that success. That was very, very impressive. But I'm not sure if you know this. She's out of her fight. She tested positive for COVID.
Oh, okay.
So if you allow me a second here, let me scramble. I think I had the name. Her name is Lilia Shakarova. She's 8-1. She's coming in as the underdog. Lauren Murphy's coming in as the favorite at -350. So that said, I do like Lauren Murphy. Had Cynthia fought her, I probably would have taken Cynthia, but I don't recall what the odds are. I may not have even known because I hadn't gotten to that point.
Right now, Cynthia was -230.
Cynthia was favored?
Yeah, she was favorite. -230 plus 190.
I called Cynthia's fight when she was an amateur fighter. I've always had a little soft spot in my heart for Cynthia. I wouldn't have laid the 230 on Cynthia. I may have parlayed her to somebody else, or if I just bet the fight individually, I usually go with the underdogs. But because of Cynthia just being a tough enough alumni, I wouldn't have bet Lauren Murphy like I normally would, because that's a lot for a fighter that's won 3 in a row. Lauren Murphy's faced some tough competition. So now on this side, her at -350, I probably would parlay her to somebody else, but I don't think I would lay 350 on Lauren Murphy. And I know zero about the other one because that literally happened in the last 24 hours.
Wow. So yeah, I didn't even get updated on that. I saw in Tapology they didn't have Cynthia and Lauren Murphy listed, but they don't have Lauren Murphy even on the card.
So here's a little backstory. Our Junkie Radio podcast, which I guess is now back to, being a vodcast or whatever you want to call it, because we're live on Sportscaster. We were talking to Cynthia Calvillo with 10 minutes to go in the show, probably another 5 minutes to go in the interview. Her phone kept blowing up. And I was joking with her. I go, is that because she was quarantining at the hotel before her flight to Abu Dhabi. So I was joking with her saying, well, you better get that. That's probably room service. Bacon and eggs are on the way up. And she was giggling. But she said it kept calling. She goes, I think it's the UFC. And I go, I'll tell you what. We already chatted with you for 10 minutes. Thanks for jumping on with us. And we'll let you go. And then, a few hours later, we found out. I wonder if that was the call telling her that she may have tested positive, But she seems in good spirits. She says her symptoms are light because she wound up posting on social media, kind of giving an update. So let's hope she gets through it quickly and she can be rebooked soon.
Definitely, yeah. Hopefully she gets through it quickly and she has some stuff to do for her recreation time.
Yeah. Sure.
If we know Cynthia.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, I can you imagine if that was something that could help out the symptoms? Token up, man. A few of those would get better like in 4 hours.
I know. I wish. I know. You never know, right? Anything could happen. Work. But the next, so obviously we'll talk about that, after it happens with Lauren Murphy and her upcoming opponent. We don't know if that fight is still on the card, though, right?
Yeah. They mentioned they were going to try and get her an opponent because Lauren Murphy was very respectful. She said, hey, Cynthia, my best to you. We'll run it maybe in a few weeks. And I don't know if she meant she wasn't sure she was getting an opponent and they could run it in a few weeks, much like Cutelaba and Ankalaev, or if she meant I'm going to fight, and if I come out of that healthy, I'll be ready to go again. Who knows? Yeah, right. But either way, she's got her opponent, and we'll see.
Definitely. This is probably news that's going to break the mainstream tomorrow because I don't see anything about it now.
About Calvillo?
Yeah, I haven't seen anything.
You need to update your MMA Junkie app, man. It was on MMA Junkie.
It was? Okay.
You're going over to fight Sure Dog and Bloody Elbow, aren't you? You got to get off those, man. Go to Junkie. We got you covered.
I got you. I'm on Junkie right now, actually. I didn't see it.
Yeah, it's there. It was
Okay. I believe you.
it may have been Thursday night. Now that I think about it, yeah, it
Yeah,
was the last 24 hours that Murphy I think got her opponent, but it was about 2 or 3 days ago that Cynthia tested positive for COVID-19.
Okay. Well, yeah, I did see on Tapology they didn't have Lauren on the card. So, moving forward, we have Volkov and Walt Harris, and I like this fight. You know, these guys like to stand and bang.
Yeah.
Big knockouts. You know, obviously Walt Harris. You know, he had such a crazy year. If you go back October of last year till October this year, and that's when that you know, obviously his daughter-in-law was missing, and a horrific tragedy that came upon that. And then he came back and he fought Elverim, not the fight he wanted to, not the you know, obviously what happened, he got knocked out, but, you know, I'm sure he was very emotional. I think we're going to see a different Walt Harris this time, and I'm predicting him by TKO finish.
Yeah, so this is a fight that's also tough for me because we've known Walt ever since his first fight in the UFC. He came by the Mandalay Bay. He came by the Mandalay Bay to our studio and did the pre-fight interview, and then he came back Monday and did the post-fight interview with us because he happened to stay. You know, so we like connected with him in 72 hours. You know, we follow other sports, and of course, he played college basketball. Really, really nice guy, and he has had a difficult year. And then on top of everything you just said, this past summer he was trying to get into politics a little bit, and he ran for, I believe it was a seat in the local city that he's from in Alabama, like on the city council. Now he came up short, but he really enjoyed it, and he says he'd like to do it again in the future. Yeah. But I think it's Homewood, Alabama, if I'm not mistaken. So, you know, it's obviously not taking a physical loss in your profession, but either way, I'm sure he would have wanted to win. Although he did say he didn't realize how much work he would be in for had he won. You know, look, Volkov is really, really grown into his frame. I saw him at Bellator years ago, and he was lanky. He didn't have as much muscle. He didn't know how to use his height. So with the height came the reach. But now he really, really can use his reach with his legs, his kicks, his punches. He's a tough out, man. I'm going to be rooting for Walt Harris, but I'd be lying if I said I wasn't nervous. Volkov deserves to be the main event, the favorite. But that said, Harris does have the type of power that could knock Volkov out.
Definitely.
So, that's one underdog I'm going to roll with. I'm going to roll with Walt Harris here.
Yeah, I'm going with Walt Harris on the TKO. I think he's due for a big one. But like you said, Volkov has all the attributes, you know, and obviously that fight with Curtis Blades didn't go his way. But if you look at a part of a round, right, it was like the fourth round, he was hurting Curtis. So
it was good. He gained a lot. Volkov got better from that. He probably got better from the Lewis come from behind knockout, because that was probably a good lesson in staying in the game, staying mentally tough all the way to the end. He lost that fight in the last 15 seconds, the Lewis fight. And then the other fight you just mentioned right now, Blades, all strikers, when they get mauled like that by a wrestler, they gain so much from it. And he showed at times that you know, he had something for the wrestler. So that's going to make him so much tougher in the subsequent fights that he has, you know, that are upcoming. He gained a lot from those. So I really think Volkov's really, really a top fighter, and he will be a top 5-10 fighter for the next 5 years or so, because he's in his prime right now, man. He's legit. But I still think Harris can hopefully catch him. I think Harris runs about 6'4". Volkov's 6'7". So it's not like he's, you know, can't match his size a little bit. I mean, you know, he does, and he's very athletic.
Definitely. Maybe uses a more wrestling heavy offense than he's used to in Walt Harris against Volkov.
Yeah, you know, you just got to be careful with it. That's one thing I'm noticing a lot is takedown defense has really, really been elevated by a lot of athletes, and they can make you expend so much energy. So if you're deep in on a double or a single, you know, and you can get someone to the ground quickly, great. And if not, I think there's this process of abandoning it.
Yeah.
Being in the clinch, hopefully in a favorable position, you score some points, maybe break away with some elbows or some knees or something. It's that blending of the martial arts that's really, really important. But yeah, if it's there, grab it, test this guy on the ground. If not, okay, don't blow your load on something that isn't.
For sure. And the next fight we have, of course, is Cannonier and Robert Whittaker. Middleweight division, that's going to be an exciting one. Cannonier was got a little mention by Adesanya to possibly fight him for the title next if he can get past Whittaker. For Whittaker, just coming off that Darren Till fight, that was a tough one, but he managed to really show that he made a big return and that he's not going to be a forgotten name when it comes to the 185-pound, top 10 or actually, former champions. He's not going to be a forgotten name. He doesn't want his legacy to be erased by that knockout by Adesanya of him a year ago. So when you look at these two, fun fight. I think it's going to be exciting, and obviously we got a number one contendership possibly on the line.
Tremendous win for Whittaker against Till.
Yeah.
Same way like Ortega won last night or against the Korean Zombie. For a fighter that's, either been a champ or gotten a whiff at winning the title like Ortega, if you take a devastating loss like that, it's so difficult to rebound. But Ortega showed us, he's ready to get right back up there with the elites, and beating the Korean Zombie. So tremendous win for Whittaker. And honestly, I was on the Cannonier hype train. Then he tore that pectoral muscle, and we haven't seen him fight in a while now. So if you would have asked me this question before Whittaker beat Till, hey, who do you think's going to win? I probably would have leaned towards Cannonier because he's just been mopping people up. But with Whittaker getting that win over Till, man, I'm starting to lean towards Whittaker a little bit. He's been in these huge fights against all kinds of competition. Of course, Cannonier's scary. But so was Yoel Romero, and he was in there for 50 minutes with Yoel Romero. He's been in there with Israel Adesanya. He's been in there with Derek Brunson. He's been in there with Darren Till now. I'm going to go with Whittaker here.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Whittaker as well. I'd like to see Cannonier win because I like to see someone fresh take on Adesanya. If Whittaker does win, is this an automatic title shot, you believe, for him, or is he going to have to prove himself again?
Adesanya doesn't seem to want to fight him. Adesanya's got options. Adesanya, we got Khamzat Chimaev, who's really making noise and taking huge strides. And I'm not in any way implying that he's ready, but what I'm saying is between John Jones, Chimaev, obviously the Cannonier Whittaker winner, man, it's tough to really say. Joker Hermanson, I thought, made a good accounting of him for himself as well. He won his last fight after losing to Cannonier and kind of getting brushed off to the side. So it's tough to say with Israel Adesanya what might be next for him, but he cannot deny Whittaker if Whittaker can beat the guy that he just said he wants to fight next.
Yes.
And Darren Till, again, another guy that Adesanya paid a lot of respect to and said he's a fan of and says he really loves his striking. So he's almost boxed himself in a corner being so kind to Whittaker or to Cannonier and Till. If Whittaker wins, they may have to do it again. That's
true. I'm excited to see, obviously, what Whittaker does in this fight. I mean, how do you feel? You think he's going to get a knockout, or think it's going to go a long decision?
Whoever wins is going to knock out the other guy.
Yeah.
Whoever wins is going to knock out the other guy. They both strike very well, and they both have a lot in their arsenal. It's not just like one big heavy hand or nothing like that. I mean, both guys can really hit you hard, and they both tend to really go for it when they see an opening. I would say Cannonier more than Whittaker, but Whittaker can definitely finish a fight too. And Whittaker also knows that winning impressively over Cannonier can probably get him that title shot that he's looking for, not just cruising to a decision and not being able to finish. Sometimes that hurts a fighter.
That's true. I'm going to go Whittaker on this one. I think it's going to be a knockout as well.
Yeah. All right.
And in the main event, we're finally here. Khabib Nurmagomedov versus Justin Gaethje. It seems like we've been waiting forever for this fight. And ever since Justin knocked off Tony, and now that fight was supposed to happen, Tony and Khabib. Now Justin and Khabib is happening. Finally, it's going to happen. This is such a great fight. I really enjoy both of them performing, and just what Justin Gaethje has done recently, what he did against Tony Ferguson, I was outstanding. Like, he just graduated. It's like a master class in striking. That's what it was for me. You put on display. How did you feel?
Yeah, I mean, Gaethje also came back from two hard losses, Alvarez and Poirier. Yeah. And to take out Tony Ferguson was very impressive. Ferguson had only lost one time to Michael Johnson like 8 years ago. And he had beaten basically everybody. So not only did he beat him, he out-toughed them, showing us just how much grit he has, how much improvements he's made. It was a statement win. Gaethje now, though, is going to have to prove his talents as a wrestler. Remember, he actually was an All-American. He was one of the ones that stood on the podium as an All-American. He's always touted his wrestling skills, and he has them. It's just that he likes kicking you and punching you better and then flipping off the stage when he's done with it. It makes him exciting, and I think that's something that he has grown to love. But in this fight, he's going to have to use the wrestling. One of two ways, I'm curious. Obviously, takedown defense is going to be important. Mm-hmm. He doesn't want to get taken down, and if he does, he wants to get up quickly. But I'm curious, what if he puts Khabib on his back, and maybe chooses to ground and pound him, instead of just getting back to the feet and striking? And let's not discount Khabib either. Khabib, in the Conor McGregor fight, he knocked down Conor McGregor, and he actually stood with Conor McGregor at times during that fight. So the same way Justin Gaethje, has developed as a fighter and evolved as a fighter, I'm sure Khabib has also done the same thing. And so you can't take that for granted, excuse me. In the end, it's so hard to go against Khabib. Not only has he never lost a fight, he rarely loses rounds. Yeah. And his recipe is just to take you up, tie your legs up, hold you down, get into dominant positions where he's dominating your hips. They call them like the mounts, just really, really dominant positions. Sometimes also side control up against the cage. He'll get you in a seatbelt, trapping your arm, and he'll just beat you up and it's like he steals your soul a little bit every round. Yes. Now, Justin Gaethje is one of those guys that says, I like to be taken into dark places in his camp and in this fight. So you're not going to break that guy. The only thing you can do is beat him up until they say, well, 25 minutes is up, the fight's over. But it doesn't seem like you can actually get him to quit or break. He might just take damage every fight and lose 10-9, rendering a 50-45 score, maybe. Or what? Or maybe he gets maybe he stops some takedowns. Maybe he sprawls. Maybe he has wrist control and he's able to circle out. Maybe he gets underhooks and mitigates damage. Who knows, And if he does and he can keep it standing and then maybe start whacking away at those legs, throwing his hands, man, I'm telling you, this could be a barn burner of a fight.
Yes. All
going to be dictated on, can Gaethje stop the takedown? I think that's the number one thing right there that's going to tell us early on, When Conor McGregor fought Khabib, that first round, he pretty much nullified Khabib. He allowed Khabib to win to win the round 10-9, but he also defended well, Yeah. And I think had he done that again, because remember, he won round 3. Had he done that again, I just wonder if it would have gotten into Khabib's head, Right. Man, I'm telling you, now Poirier, on the other hand, he got taken down rather easily. I don't want to blast Poirier because he was coming off some hip surgeries and things like that. So, I mean, I don't know, man. Every time Khabib fights, I think you can get some intel on him. And hopefully Justin and his team have done their homework. because I just want to see a great fight, Now, let's talk about the odds. The odds obviously have Khabib as the favorite. I would probably be remiss to not take Khabib, just because, again, he just hasn't shown us many holes that he can even be stopped. And until it happens, you almost have to ride somebody like that. You almost have to ride Israel and Jones and Khabib, when they get on these rolls, man, as a gambler, it's hard to go against them unless the odds get in the 300s, 400s, 500s. Then you just sit it out and enjoy it as a fan. But we'll see, man. Sometimes when I'm chasing, like when I'm down, say, okay, I need the underdog and an early knockout, and I'll just partner those two up together. And it's helped before. It's rescued me. But I think right now Khabib's the play.
Yeah, I would say so. I'm actually telling people to pick him by submission. I think he's going to win this fight by submission.
Yeah, that's not a bad thing. I mean, that's how he beat. Yeah, that's how he beat McGregor. I mean, Khabib doesn't even care. Khabib doesn't care if he's like on the Sports Center top 10 highlights or anything like that. All he cares about is winning. And I bet you it's going to be really, really emotional to fight for the first time without his dad.
Yes.
Not necessarily in his corner, because he hasn't been in his corner for all his fights, but just having been a part of his camp and knowing that obviously he can't go back to Dagestan and celebrate it with him. And then I think a cousin of his just got COVID-19. So that's probably a lot to go through, all of us, you and I, we're going through a lot during the pandemic.
I know.
We're all going through a lot, but
exactly.
You and I had to go through a camp. But I bet you it's going to be his most proudest wins. Remember, they're unifying the titles.
Yes.
Interim against undisputed. So it's going to be pretty special for Khabib if he can defend.
I think so as well. And I'm going with that submission just because how he submitted Poirier, how he submitted, he just drains the guy. He doesn't just like, okay, he caught him, he was lucky. Like Fedor, some of his finishes, they were luck, back in the day. But this is going to be he just drains, wears the guy down, like his battery level, his energy level is depleted, and he goes for that finish.
He does. He's amazing. He's, I think, underrated by many. And it happens because when you look at the GOATs of the sport, you usually obviously look towards the champions and then their title defenses. Jones and Johnson have 11 each. GSP had 9. Anderson had 10, or vice versa. Aldo had 7. I think Nunes on 6. Khabib hasn't joined that company yet, but he's slowly getting there. I think this will be number 4 for him. So, but that 0 next to his in the L column, that's amazing. Almost, what is he? Right. Almost, man, if he wins this fight, I think.
I think he's 26-0, I believe, because he was 24-0 before his last one. Or he's already 26, so he's 27. I'd have to look it up.
For sure, he's made it to 28-0, I believe. So he's either going to be 29-0 or 30-0. That's the part I don't know.
You're right. He's 28-0.
Okay, so he'll be 29-0. Yeah, and I wonder, man, this could be a guy that could care less about title defense records. He may. Right. I don't know. Khabib strikes me as a little different in regards to fame and popularity. I could see him either fighting another 5 times. Or maybe 2 more, counting this one, and just exiting at 30-0. I bet you a lot of fighters took a look at what Henry Cejudo did and said, "Hey, salute Henry, that good for you." You know what I mean? Now that said, I think Henry's going to come back. But when he caught us all off guard, I think a lot of us just said, "Wow, like he really had a great run. He won 2 titles in 2 different weight classes." One of them against the GOAT, Demetrius Johnson. And to be fair, they're 1-1. And then one of them against one of the best bantamweights ever. He defended the flyweight against one of the best bantamweights ever, TJ Dillashaw. Right. But he still beat him. He beat Marlon Moraes. And then Dominic Cruz was a title defense. So he had 2 title defenses in both weight classes. Cruz is one of the GOATs. Johnson's one of the GOATs. And he just felt like, I'm good. I don't need to break any records. Yep. I'm just going to exit with all my marbles, or at least most of my marbles. I got a girl, and
Yeah.
I'm going to go do other stuff. You know, I've been training since I was 6, I think is what he said, because he had that decorated wrestling career, you know, state champ in high school, skipped college, won a gold medal. Amazing.
Yes. Yeah.
Amazing.
It's crazy to think about, you know, what he's done in that time.
Yeah. And then there's some fighters that stick around too long and it just doesn't sit right with them. You know, it's interesting how fighters have their exit from the sport and how that impacts them going forward as human beings.
True. And one thing we didn't mention is Michael Chandler is on Fight Island.
He is. He is. So he steps in for either guy. If he steps in for Gaethje, he would be fighting for the undisputed title, provided they both make weight. Well, no, actually, I guess even if Khabib didn't, I bet you the title would be up for Chandler. That's something the UFC's been doing lately. And if Khabib couldn't go for whatever reason, then I guess Gaethje would be defending his interim title. I don't think the UFC would make them fight for the undisputed title unless Khabib were to have some sort of an injury where we know he's going to be out for another 9 months to a year. Then maybe they would do that. But I don't think that. I mean, we obviously don't want that to happen.
Right.
And, but yeah, he's there. He's there at Fight Island. He's going through everything everybody else went through. You know, all of the quarantine process, the weight cut process, and I heard he's getting paid very well for it. So God bless him.
Yeah, same here. And you know, obviously he could be the #1 contender coming after this one.
Yeah, well, I mean, not probably won't be a #1 contender. I still think what will have to happen is this is just a special opportunity because Poirier and Ferguson weren't able to somehow get on that card and have, you know, the UFC really wanted, you know, some insurance for this card. So I think, you know, coming out of this, more than likely he'll have to fight Tony since Poirier seems likely to fight Conor. And then should he beat Tony, then yeah, he may have taken this huge leap and become a #1 contender. But as long as you have Conor McGregor around, you know, and if he can beat Poirier, it might be tough to not book Conor versus Khabib too, even if Khabib puts his foot down. You know Khabib doesn't want to give him that chance. Every time he warms up to it, Conor does or says something that makes Khabib say, no, I think the latest were, you could pay me $5 billion and I still wouldn't coach against him on tough. So who knows?
Yeah, who knows, right? But it'll be interesting to see what happens. And we appreciate you, George, of course, being on the Fightlete Report today. Everybody check out MMA Junkie Podcast. And, of course, you're welcome on anytime, brother. And we hope that you are staying safe out there in Vegas.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate you.
Anytime, George. And let us know again how we can check out MMA Junkie and all the platforms.
Okay, you can go to sportscaster.com/MMA Junkie. That's our channel on Sportscaster, SPORTSCASTR, no E in sports in caster. And we're there Monday and Thursday, noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. We're live with a video with, you know, you can watch us, so we're on video. Or you can just listen to us if you just choose to do the audio option. Tomorrow, our guest will be Joseph Benavidez, noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific for 1 hour. And then we upload the audio on Stitcher, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and many others as well. Those seem to be the most popular. And if for whatever reason you forget, what do you say again? Just go to MMA Junkie Mondays and Thursdays. You'll see the post that says MMA Junkie Radio. Click that, and all the links are there for you to your subscriptions. Yeah.
And enjoy your fight day because the fights will be on during the daytime.
They will. 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern. Goz and I are actually hosting a watch-along on Sportscaster. So if you decide not to pay for the pay-per-view, you can watch us, and we'll be describing the action. And, you know, we can't turn the camera and show it to you.
Of course.
Show you what's happening. So we're not pirates over here, but at least we can tell you what's happening, which is probably better than hitting refresh over and over on your favorite website.
Definitely. Well, appreciate it, George. Best of luck, of course, in the future. And you're welcome back anytime on the Fight Report. Enjoy the fights.
You too. Take care, Sean.
Okay.